I'm Anitra Terrell, owner of Reflection Design, Afro-modern home decor. And I'm passionate about telling the stories of how we express joy at home using the art and textiles of our roots. So join me as I take a closer look at the lives and homes of men and women across the African diaspora. This is How We Live.
Welcome to How We Live, the show that celebrates the lives and homes of people across the African diaspora. In today's episode, I had the pleasure of speaking with Nikki Green, Texas-based interior designer, avid gardener, and upholstery queen. In this episode, you'll learn why we should keep, not toss, our family heirlooms and how our ancestors' ways of living can inspire us. Plus, you'll get great decorating tips you can incorporate today. So, let's get into it. Hi, Nikki. Welcome to How We Live. How are you doing today?
Hi, Anitra. Doing great. It's great to see you as always.
It is. And of course, we are like Instagram homies, Instagram sister friends. So when I started the How We Live series on YouTube, of course, you were one of the first people that came to mind because you have such a multifaceted approach to home decor and also your lifestyle as a whole. It's very interesting. So I'm looking forward to diving right on into that. So the first thing is, of course, tell everyone who you are and a little bit about your home.
So I'm Nikki Green. I am an interior designer, but I'm so much more than an interior designer. I have a whole family that loves to eat all the things. So I cook a lot and I share a lot of that. I love to garden. And of course, I love home decor, but I love home decor from a different standpoint. I don't want to spend all my coins and I want to love everything that I have in my home. And that's what I want for my clients and everybody else as well. So that's what I do.
Since you touched on gardening, this is perfect because I actually wanted to start on the outside of your home before we get into the inside of your home. You are an avid gardener, and I love watching your videos on Instagram where you're showing what you're growing at the moment, how the seasons are affecting what you happen to be growing at the time, new thing. You're not afraid to experiment with growing new things. How did you get into gardening, and how do you and your family benefit from gardening?
Well, getting into gardening is kind of a touchy subject, not in a bad way, in a great way. My grandparents were gardeners, much better than I am. My great-grandparents were gardeners, again, much better than I am. They lived in an era where, everyone was known for something in the neighborhood. So one person grew a lot of okra, another person might have grown a lot of greens, and they just swapped and shared. But most of those things they did not go to the grocery store to get. So I grew up eating Sunday dinners with food that my grandmother actually went outside and picked that morning to cook for us that day. And just being very, very inspired by that and her delicious Southern cooking, eventually I started like a small container garden. No good at it. I was really, really bad at it. Really bad. Everything died, basically. And then when we moved into our current home, I told my husband, listen, I really want to try to do this thing because if my grandparents could do it, it skipped a generation. My mom was not into gardening at all. So I could get nothing from her in that regard. But if my grandparents could do it, my great-grandparents could do it. If they could live off the land, and if our ancestors did that all along, why can't I do this in this modern day and age where we have everything available to us, right? So I decided that when we extended our patio outside, I decided, well, let's go ahead and put in a small garden too. And I can start with things that are pretty easy, or that I thought were easy, like greens and cucumbers and things. Let me just say that when you are a gardener, it is not easy at all. You research all the things and get it wrong. For 3 years, I could grow nothing but a cucumber. That's it. And then could never go greens. And now just through trial and error and continuing to try new things, I've been able to keep the garden going. My husband has now gotten involved, which I absolutely love. And so has my 10-year-old, I call him my 10-year-old, my 12-year-old. He's getting so big now. He has even gotten involved. And that I feel like is what gardening is all about for us and for our ancestors. Like, we always did commune outside in the garden. And even just, you know, now that my grandmother has passed away, I call that my self-care time. I go outside and I feel like I can speak to God and I can channel my grandmother. And it feels really good to just be outside and moving. Plus, I don't have to exercise because the garden is exercise. But I think also, I do want to say, like, you asked how the garden benefits us, benefits me. Of course, we eat the food from there. And I don't know if you've been following, but I'm now growing loofah, which is like the ultimate because we won't ever have to buy another sponge or washcloth or anything like that again, I don't think. But, you know, it also benefits everyone else around me because we're giving back to the earth. And the more plants we have, which you live in a city like Houston, we're mostly concrete. So the more we plant, the better we're helping our environment.
Did you say you're growing loofah?
I'm growing loofah.
I didn't know you could grow loofah.
I had no idea. I bought this on a whim, and oh my God, it's an amazing process.
Well, keep us posted on that. I want to see the sponges and the washcloth. I want to see how it goes from plant to usable product in your home. So please,
Absolutely.
On Instagram, make sure you follow Nikki on Instagram. We're going to tag all of her information below. Make sure you're following her. So, because I'm curious to see how this transitions here. This is really interesting.
I do have, I have kind of been chronicling the process as much as I possibly can. And I plan to put all of those videos that I put in the stories, I'm going to put those together in a highlight just for the loofah itself, because there's so much I've been learning about this process.
Wow. You know, they say you learn something new every day. And it's when you think about it, you're like, oh, that's right. Loofah is, you know, spongy, but you just never realize that you literally can grow that from the earth. So yeah, definitely keep us posted on that. Now let's go inside your house now. So we hung out in the garden. Now let's step inside. Just tell us about your home decor style. How would you describe it in 3 words?
Oh, clean, colorful, and just, I don't know what the last word would be. It's all me. It's me. And I
like that. There's a lot of joy in that. Those 3 words: clean, colorful, and me. I think we all aspire for the first word. you know, exactly. But what I've also found interesting about learning more and following you is that you also have a room in your home called the Nostalgia Room. Tell us about the Nostalgia Room and why it was important for you to have that in your home.
So I talk about, you guys hear me talk about my grandmother all the time. Like, Anitra, you've seen it. I talk about her in my posts. Like, she is the inspiration behind a lot of what I do. She's actually the inspiration behind me becoming in series. And it makes me tear up because I love her so much and I miss her so much. But so I have a lot of things that were hers or were my great-grandparents, or things that say were in the home that I grew up in, but my mom didn't necessarily know what to do with them. She didn't necessarily want to keep them. And I just said, you know what? We are not getting rid of that. I'm going to make that over, or, you know, even if I don't make it over, that's going to stay in the family. So originally I had things kind of sprinkled throughout the house. And you know that there's a whole lot more impact when you group things together, like you group collections together. So that's what made me decide to make the guest room into what I call the nostalgia room. And if I ever rent the house out, like a vacation home, that's what it would be called. You can stay in the nostalgia room. But I call it that because so everything in that room except for the desk is very, very old. Like, some things are older than me. My mom's rocking chair, and she is a little girl, isn't it? My mom is 71 years old. So that has got to be easily 65 years old. Um, I have my grandmother's chair in there. One of them, of course, this is another one, but her rockers in there as well. And then the bed was my sister's when she was a little bit like 25 years old. We have a chest that was my brother's and when he was little, so that's easily 40 years old. And it's all in pristine condition. And when I walk in that room, it's just very, very peaceful. And, you have all the memories there, good and bad, but it just feels really good to walk in and just, you feel family. You feel your ancestry, kind of,
Yeah.
And I love that room. It just makes me smile.
I think it's so important to talk about family heirlooms and keeping family close to you. Ways you can do that once they're no longer with us. And I don't know if you ever watched the TV show Antique Roadshow.
Yeah.
You see people that look like us. Every now and then, you'll see us coming with an heirloom that we want to get appraised. And I always wondered, why aren't there more of us bringing forth items? Now, there's a whole list of reasons. We won't get into this conversation. But what I will say is, let's open that conversation. Let's start talking about within our families, keeping family heirlooms, keeping furniture, quilts, keeping art, all kinds of things, jewelry, keeping those things, not necessarily because you want to take it to Antiques Roadshow, but because you want to keep those pieces of your history, pieces
Right.
your pieces with story. You want to keep those pieces in your family so that you can pass them down to your children and your children's children instead of giving them away or selling them. And that's why I wanted to bring up the nostalgia, because we can do it. It's very, it's pretty easy to do. Even if you don't necessarily want to have those types of pieces throughout your entire home, you can create a room, create a shelf that has particular
part. Yeah, a simple vignette. It doesn't have to be anything huge. But yeah, I do agree with you. And I feel like we should normalize that because, like you said, there are stories behind these items. And when our parents, our grandparents, our great-grandparents were buying these things, it was not easy to just pick up and go to a sofa. I feel like we've gotten so used to the modern conveniences and had great jobs and, just, oh, this is a throwaway and go buy the next thing. But that next thing does not tell a story to your kids. That next thing, I have pictures sitting in this chair when I was a 2-year-old. And I can tell my son that, and he loves hearing those types of stories. We don't think that our kids are listening when we talk about these things, but they really are, and they really are interested in these things. And I feel like it's our duty to kind of not just tell the stories, but be able to point to something in our homes, in our lives that actually can relate back to the story, make it tangible.
Well, let's talk about that chair. In addition to, I hope y'all are keeping count here, because we have gardener, we have cook, chef, we have interior designer. What we also have, ladies and gentlemen, is a DIY queen who's not afraid to pick up a power tool and totally transform some beautiful pieces. So tell us about that chair and how you transformed it.
Let me first just say, I love my power tools. Any excuse to use a power tool, I'm taking it. This chair actually was my grandmother's bergère. And I hate to say it, but it was not pretty, not to me. But, it had seen better days. And I did not realize until I was actually reupholstering this chair. I reupholstered this chair, what was it, last year? Was it last year or 2 years ago? I think it was last year.
Yeah.
And it was sitting in our previous home. It's been sitting in this home forever. Like I stripped it bare 6 years ago and never got around to reupholstering it because I was so intimidated by it. And I was intimidated because, I'm sorry, all these stories make me want to cry. I was intimidated by it because it was my grandmother's chair. My grandmother has so much style. And when you're making over any piece of furniture that has been in your family for years, you want to say, you want your ancestors to be proud of what your elders to be proud of what you did to their piece of furniture. So there is no bringing in something trendy. It has to be classic. It has to be it has to be beautiful, and it has to be something that they would look at and say, well done, you did a really good job on that. And so when I started this chair, picking out the fabric, number one, was like such a trial. I was so scared. But as you can see, I have my cowrie shell fabric from your shop, which I absolutely adore. And the chair is two-tone. It's two-tone. So this fabric is on the inside of the back and on the insides of the arms and on the removable cushion. And then there's just a standard cream on the base and on the back side, because I didn't want anything to interfere with the main star of the show, this fabric here.
And how did you, because I know there's a lot of people watching that are thinking, I have a footstool or a chair or something in my own that I'd love to upholster, but I don't know the first thing about upholstering furniture. How did you go about learning what to do first? You picked out your fabric, but once you got beyond that, you had to take all the original fabric, take nails out, etc. How did you go about figuring all that out?
A lot of research. I did a lot of research, and I also reached out to, a few Instagram friends that actually are upholsterers and are amazing at what they do. And as a matter of fact, there was one that I was like, when you come to Houston, can you just come to Houston? Or can I ship this chair to you in Atlanta? No, that'll cost too much. Come to Houston. So, I reached out to people as I really wanted him to do my chair, but that just was not going to be feasible. But he told me, if you have any questions or you run into any problems, ask. And I think that's the big thing. Like, we form a community for that reason, so that we can bounce things off of each other. And so it's no competition whatsoever. I could not compete with him if I wanted to, but no competition. That's the meaning of community. You reach out, you ask questions. Hey, what should I do here? What should I do there? I don't have that tool. Should I go buy that tool, or can I use something else? Little things like that. So really, that's how I got through this chair, because I did not think I was going to make it. But I had done a lot of smaller projects before, and I will say this to anybody who wants to upholster anything at all. Just try, because you never know what you will be able to do. Maybe you can get like if you're interested in it, you can get something from a thrift store that doesn't really hold a whole lot of meaning to you, and you don't have to pay a lot for it. And then practice with like some drop cloth instead of the actual fabric that you want to use. Practice with something that's a little less expensive, and do a small footstool. Maybe do a kitchen chair where all you have to do is the seat, and you start to build up your confidence in what you can accomplish. And then just keep trying and keep practicing, because that's the only way any of us really gets there, honestly. Like, even in our jobs, the only way we get there is because we have to learn and we have to practice. And it takes us years to get where we want to be, if ever. I mean, we're constantly learning, right? So, just keep trying and trying and trying.
And one of the other things that I couldn't agree more, and one of the other things that I want to point out in your home specifically is your use of fabrics. And when we talk about African decor, people, may automatically think about a lot of the items like baskets or wood baths or furniture or carvings, the bigger items. But you can also decorate your home with an African-inspired design using textiles. And what I love about your home, amongst many things, is that you use a lot of African fabrics in your home.
Can you tell us about some of the projects that either you've done yourself or maybe even those that you may have purchased that where African fabric is the star in that decor item?
Yes. So I love to frame things and I love color. Like, color is my thing. So a lot of times I find things, textiles that I absolutely love. They may not be something that I can recover a chair with, or, I may not be able to make curtains that will fit into my decor style in a specific room. I frame the fabrics. I love framed fabrics. They are everywhere in this house. And most of them are yours because sometimes you just can't choose. Like, they're so pretty and they're so vibrant. And of course, there's options that are more neutral for those people, think that they're color folks. I will say this as well. You think you're a color folk until you get some of these beautiful, beautiful things. And you're like, okay, I like all the colors. Which ones do I use? The great thing about a lot of the fabrics is that in some way, whether it's through color or through pattern, they can all kind of be intertwined, intermixed. Like, you don't have to say, this room right here is going to only be blue and green because this fabric is blue and green. No, that fabric might have some black and some white in it that translates over to another fabric that has black and white in it, but a totally different color scheme. And you can mix those together and they look so pretty. As a matter of fact, in the nostalgia room, the wall behind the bed is all fabrics, just framed fabrics. There's 4 of them behind the bed and 1 over by my grandmother's rocker. And they fit perfectly in that room. There's some in the room I'm sitting in, like I'm looking at one over my TV right now. And it's just, again, they bring you joy. And isn't that what home is all about? Like, we do the things we love. And if you can't do them on a large scale, do them on a smaller scale. Hang them on the wall, like even tapestry style. Or, like I said, frame them. I have made little cozies for plants. My plants don't typically live inside the house, so that didn't work out too great.
Wait, how are you a successful gardener, but your indoor plants are struggling? How's that happen?
Wait, ask the question again. I thought you might be able to tell me because I have no idea how that happened. I think I have a handful of plants inside the house that have made it. I can't do it. It just doesn't work. I love them to death. I think that's what happens.
For those of you watching, leave us some ideas in the comments how to help your indoor plants survive. Even though you have a green belt outside, how do you help them survive indoors? But we're talking about fabric, and I noticed the lampshade behind you looks like it has a band of fabric around the top. Is that right?
It does. I had a dress that it was too long. Like, I was trying to be a hottie. I wanted it to be a little bit shorter. So I cut a little bit of the hem off, and the hem is where the trim was. So I just cut that off the dress, and I was like, surely I can do something with this. We're always thinking, always trying to do new and inventive things. And I said, this red lamp, the red is good enough. Okay, it's nice and vibrant, but let's do this. This is going to make it that much better. And I love it. It's been like that ever since.
Are y'all, the gems that are being dropped in this episode are just plentiful. Cutting the hem off your dress and wrapping it around your lampshade. I mean, those are the things that, first of all, most of us don't even think of. But secondly, there's such an approachable way to incorporate African patterns into your home that's less intimidating. You see, it's a very thin band. It's on a lampshade, which is something smaller in scale. And it's something you can experiment with. You can easily replace the lampshade if it doesn't work out. So I hope y'all are taking notes on all of these fabulous ideas, from framing the fabric to putting them on your lampshade, cozies for your plants when they survive, and just being creative. Those are low cost, zero cost, for the most part, ideas that you can do
very easily, which I love.
And they're also really great. They're also a really great introduction to pattern and color. So again, like I said earlier, if you're afraid of color, this gives you a way to switch things in and out, like you said, and you might find that you actually love a certain color combination that you never would have thought of before.
Mm-hmm. Now, for those who are hesitant to, we've been talking about, here's some ways, and we kind of touched on this, start in small doses, do some practice things. Those that are hesitant to incorporate African decor in their home, they're not sure where to start. What's one piece of advice you would give them?
This is hard because I have so many pieces of advice I would give. But the most important thing I would say is to get something that really speaks to you. So let's say you go to reflectiondesign.com and you want to look at pillow covers. Like, don't feel like you have to get something that, just goes with what you have now, or something that you've seen other people do. Like, and don't pick based on price. Like, just go through and whatever jumps out at you, whatever actually speaks to you, try that first. Because I do feel like, regardless of whether you are curating a collection or quote unquote know what you're doing, half the time I don't know what I'm doing. But there's something about a piece, or something about a fabric, or something about a mask, something that speaks to me about that piece. And when I bring it into my home, it makes me feel good, it makes me happy, then I know that I made a good purchase. So, whether it goes with my red couch or not, I like this particular thing, so I'm going to incorporate that in my home because it makes me happy. And then you may end up designing something, decorating something around that because you love it so much. So that would be my first piece of advice, is just to get something that really speaks to you, something that you really love, whatever that reason may be.
Now, at Reflection Design, our mantra is see yourself at home. And you've shared so much with us already, but in a nutshell, how does your home reflect who you are and how you live in it?
First of all, my home is everything that I am. It's very peaceful. It's also very colorful, which can be, people will say, okay, well, color's not peaceful, but it can be. It can be very, very peaceful. Color, the psychology of color is very well documented. And so I use a lot of color to, evoke different feelings, different emotions, and just to help us feel good. Some of the things are my favorite colors. Some of the things are my husband's favorite, my son's favorite. And we somehow make it all work together. It's very harmonious. And that's what we are about as a family. We want to feel great. And everybody knows, as soon as you walk in our front door, like, you literally know who we are, because nothing is cookie cutter. There's a ton of color. You see my basket wall, you see orange chairs, you see us when you walk into our home. And it's not just about pictures of family, which that's a great thing. We have those as well. But even if we didn't have those, you would walk in and say, I can almost imagine the type of person who lives here. And also, the way we live in our home, there's a lot going on a lot of times. And that's why I want it to just be very clean and calm and peaceful when we want it to be that way. So just being able to walk in and have other people walk in and say, oh, it just feels so zen in here. That's what our life is all about, because I believe that home should be a sanctuary. It should be someplace where everyone who walks in feels good, not just us, our visitors, anyone. You feel great. It's bonus points if it looks great, which doesn't always happen. But, I say clean, and by clean, I don't necessarily mean like the countertops are completely clean, which I have to have that too. But it means really there's places where your eye can rest. Everything is just not just glaring in your face. There's not this trendy thing over here, that trendy thing over there. It feels good. And the last thing I will say about our home and how it speaks to us, I'm a nonconformist all the way. So I always have been all my life. And so one thing you will not see is, a lot of, I keep talking about trends, but you won't see a lot of trendy things in my home. You won't come in and say, oh yeah, I saw somebody else has this and that. There may be a few things that are like that, but for the most part, I'm looking for ways to use things that you will not see in someone else's home. And I like to do that for my clients as well. I don't want you to walk into anybody else's house and say, yeah, I have that bed and that comforter set and those chairs right there. That doesn't make your home yours. And that for me, I will forego that all day long. You just won't see it. And that pretty much describes who we are as a family as well.
I think you dropped so many key points there, from creating a home that's harmonious, but also including the other people who live in the home, including them in the decorating choices as well, because you all have to live there. So, when you look around the room or when you go into different rooms, you want everyone to equally feel that they see themselves just as much as you see yourself in the home.
Absolutely.
In the decor and the designs. I think that's an important point, because a lot of times homes are decorated based on one person's point of view, whether that be the homeowner themselves or the interior designer if they hired one, not taking into account all the other individuals, family members who also have to live there.
Absolutely.
That's an important piece. I'm so glad you brought that up. Now let's get into our lightning round, shall we?
Okay, let's try it.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you a few questions, and I want you to give me the first answer that comes to mind. Okay? Question 1. What's one decorating trend that you think is overused?
Glam, dare I say it? Like, just that whole, for me, glam is like completely overdone. And sometimes it's over the top. And I'm just like, okay, just bring in 1 or 2 pieces of glam. And I don't want to look around and see all the sparkly things everywhere, like glitter threw up in the room. Sorry to say it that way, but that.
Hey, this is your truth. This is your answer. You can say whatever you want to say. What one decorating trend you think is not used enough?
Oh, I will go back to heirloom pieces. I believe that there is a lot of style that comes from older things, whether it's furniture, textiles that, maybe you can only hang those as a tapestry because they're so delicate and they have a story behind them. And there's the style and the longevity. And things were made so much better back in the day. Like that lasted forever. And I think that's something that people don't do enough. Like we do have, both of us, we do have a lot of antiquing friends, people who love to go thrift shopping. And I love that idea. But more so than that, like you talked about earlier, I love the idea of keeping things in the family for generations and generations and generations, and actually using them and loving them.
So you're decorating a room and you hit a creative roadblock. You don't know what to do, where to start. What's one thing you do to spark inspiration?
It depends on if I'm working on my own room or a client's room. So if I'm working on my own room, a lot of times I will just go and sit and envision what I want the room to be, how I want it to make me feel. I will start there. And then going back to choosing things that you love, I will find one thing that I know for sure I want to be in that room. And it has to be something that I love and really truly drawn to. And then I would build out the room from there. That one thing may not end up being the star of the show, but it will be the jump off for the show.
Mm-hmm. You're hosting a dinner party with Who's 3 people you would invite?
My grandmother, of course. I'm gonna cheat a little bit because I think I would invite Oprah because I feel like the conversations that would go on between my grandmother and Oprah is gonna be great. And Oprah goes nowhere without Gail, so I get a twofer, right? I get a twofer on that one. And then the third person would be very difficult because I would want to include a man, but there's so many amazing women that I would want to be there. Maybe you could join us, ma'am. Yeah.
Hey, Houston is a hop, skip, and a jump from Atlanta. Catch a quick flight.
Yeah.
I would love to be at the table with you and Oprah and Gail and your grandmother. I would love that. But I want to thank you for joining us. It's as I said before at the start of our conversation, it's always a joy to talk to you because you're so multifaceted and also just a very warm and genuine person. And I learned a lot from our conversation. I'm sure everyone watching has learned a lot from our conversation. And so thank you so much for joining us today.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. I could talk about these things all day long. If you had a whole afternoon, I'd take it from you. So absolutely my pleasure, my joy. Thank you.
Nikki, where can we find you online?
Great question. So I am Fourth House on the Right everywhere, except on Twitter. The right is not spelled out. It's just RT because of the letters, the character count. Fourth House _ on the right on Instagram.
Awesome.
You can also just Google me, Nicola. There's only one with my spelling, Nicola Green, or Google Fourth House on the Right and every single.
Awesome. And we'll also link everything below with the complete spelling so that you can easily find her and Google her online. Thank you, sis.
Thank you. Talk to you soon.
Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe to my channel. And to add more style and culture to your home, shop reflectiondesign.com.